Thank you very much. Ms. Zucklin?
Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman. Partially free to not free, due to factors such as arrest for political opposition figures, as well as increased discrimination, worsening sectarian discrimination. In March this year, Freedom House issued a report on women's rights in the Middle East and North Africa, which examined the status, particularly what's been going on the past 5 years with respect to women's rights in the region, including in Bahrain. So I'm going to focus my remarks on that report and women's rights situation in Bahrain. The Kingdom of Bahrain is generally considered more liberal in its interpretation and application of Islam than other countries in the Gulf. Sharia is the main source of law, and the rights and duties and gender roles in Bahrain are strongly influenced by the country's culture and its religion. During the past decade, women's rights in Bahrain have steadily improved. That being said, Bahrain and the entire Gulf region lag far behind much of the rest of the world. In terms of the context of the Middle East and North Africa, Bahrain's respect for women's rights ranks about in the middle of that region. In terms of legal guarantees, the Constitution guarantees a certain degree of equality between men and women. At the same time, there's no law that strictly bans discrimination. In fact, gender-based discrimination really is pervasive in the system. As one example, there's a nationality law that allows a man, if he marries a foreign-born woman, to pass his nationality onto her as well as their children, but there's no such equality for women if they marry foreign-born nationals. Nonetheless, there have been positive legal reforms. For example, in 2004, Bahrain rescinded a law requiring women to gain male guardian's approval in order to obtain a passport. In 2007, they finally enacted some kind of minimum ages for marriage. So for girls, it's 15, and boys, it's 17. The quasi-governmental Supreme Council for Women, as well as NGOs, have played important roles in promoting women's rights in Bahrain. In particular, they have worked towards the enactment of a personal status code. Personal status codes deal with issues such as marriage, divorce, child custody, inheritance. So these are matters that are incredibly important to the day-to-day lives of women. Until 2009, there was no personal status code at all in Bahrain. Instead, Sharia court judges applied their interpretations of Islam to individual cases. One of the most significant achievements in Bahrain with respect to women's rights, although it's only a partial victory, was the enactment of a personal status code in May of last year. And this enactment followed years of lobbying from the civil society. It was originally envisioned that this law would apply to all Muslims, to Sunnis and Shias alike. And it contains some separate provisions in areas in which the two sects differed. However, what happened in February of last year was there was opposition from hardline Shiite scholars and legislators to the inclusion of the Shia portion. And thus the code was enacted, but only as to Sunnis. And as you are aware, Shias comprise the majority of the people in Bahrain. Although the new law embraces many traditional Sharia provisions that discriminate against women, at the same time there are some provisions that are positive for women. For example, now women must consent to marriage. They're allowed to include provisions in their marriage contract, and they have the right to separate residence if their husbands take second wives. With respect to political rights, in 2002, Bahrain became the first country in the Gulf to grant universal suffrage for women, as well as their right to run for office. Since then, women have achieved modest progress in that realm, although they remain underrepresented. In 2006, a woman ran unopposed and became Bahrain's first female parliamentarian. 10 women are members of the first consultative council and thus represent 25% of its membership. Participation of women at the national level remains low, although women are seen in a handful of appointments. For example, Bahrain's ambassador to the United States is a woman, Ambassador Nuna. In 2006, Bahrain appointed its first female judge. However, there are only 7 women judges in the judiciary, and there's not a single woman who handles Sharia cases, and those are the cases that impact women the most. Women do participate in community life, although they do so more so at the local level than at the national level. And improvements to the status of women have been hampered by their lack of access to the judiciary, as well as low legal literacy. They just general lack of knowledge of their rights. One positive spot is that in 2008, Bahrain enacted laws combating anti-trafficking, human trafficking, although much more needs to be done in that realm. There's still no law that prohibits, that criminalizes domestic violence. The picture is more positive when it comes to education for Bahraini women. In the 2 largest universities in Bahrain, more than half of the students are female. In terms of employment, approximately 34% of adult Bahraini women are employed, or at least according to the last figures. And while their participation in the business world and economic life has increased, there's still a general viewpoint in society that really the workforce and business are really a male realm rather than one for all. There are currently no laws that punish workplace discrimination, but on the other hand, there have been some advancements, some protections for women. For example, women can no longer be fired once they become married or if they are pregnant. They have also enacted greater maternity leave for their female employees, going from, I think it's like 35 days to 60 days. And the Bahraini government also provides a number of general services, social services for all its citizens, and thus that has had a positive impact on women, including housing and health for its citizens. But there's still some discrimination even there. For example, single women and those who are separated do not get the same benefits as men. And Bahrain has adopted a number of reforms that have helped the status of women there, but much more attention needs to be paid to those issues. The Bahraini government should be encouraged to improve mechanisms for women who are victims of domestic violence and workplace discrimination, and to educate its citizens about women's rights, as well as to encourage the participation of women in the public life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oakland. Mr. Katzman.
Which is a cleared CRS product. After instability during the late 1990s, Bahrain undertook substantial political reforms that included the Shiite majority in governance. However, unrest among Bahraini Shiites continues to simmer over the Sunni-led government's perceived manipulation of citizenship and election laws and regulations to maintain its grip on power. In late 2008, the power struggle manifested as large demonstrations and some arrests of major Shia opposition figures. Smaller such incidents continue to date, often resulting in Bahraini civilian injuries or occasional deaths. These tensions are increasing in the run-up to parliamentary elections planned possibly for November, and we heard about. We don't really have, as was noted, a firm date for the elections. However, most Bahraini Shiites perceive they will be again deprived of an outright election victory, as defined as a majority in the lower house, which is elected, the Council of Deputies, so-called. Underlying the unrest are lingering Bahraini government fears that Iran is supporting Shiite opposition movements, possibly in an effort to install a Shiite-led pro-Iranian government on the island. These fears are occasionally reinforced by comments from Iranian editorialists and political leaders that Bahrain should never have been allowed to become formally independent of Iran in a UN-run referendum in 1970.